The 2022 World Cup in Qatar is just a few months away, but a lot of questions are still being asked onto which venues will be used for the 2026 World Cup between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. What's up everybody, my name is Alan and this is the Box to Box Soccer Show where I bring you news and information related to US soccer with my own thoughts and opinions. So if you're someone that enjoys soccer content, I ask you to please give this video a few minutes of your time, and if you enjoy it, perhaps even liking and subscribing to my channel, as it would help me very much and push the video to people much like yourself who enjoy soccer content. Now there are questions being asked about the host cities because they've obviously haven't been selected yet. But what we've learned from soccer journalists Grant Wall and Stephen Gall from the Washington Post, who has also confirmed rumors, is that the selection for the cities will be done on June 16th, the day after the El Salvador Nations League game for the United States. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and list the information that we know from the United Bid Book, the bid book that was submitted to FIFA, and information that has come in from Grant Wall's articles. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put up a map of all the cities, then list some of the criteria that is being used for the bid book and scheduling of this tournament. And then I'll go ahead and give you the reasons why I think some venues will be used versus not being used. Alright, with that being said, thank you so much for joining me, and let's get it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the map that was submitted to FIFA in the bid book. And as you'll probably see in the map, you'll see all the cities from Mexico, Canada, and the United States being mentioned. However, we should look a little more closely as there are some changes to the map that we need to take into consideration. The first thing that we need to look at, of course, is that Washington, D.C., the U.S. capital, is no longer in consideration for a bid. They technically are with a joint city bid with Baltimore. And then we need to move up to Canada and Montreal, where Montreal recently dropped out of being a contender for the World Cup. However, we do know that Vancouver, as of recently, rejoined to be a city considered to host World Cup games, so that makes Canada have 3 venues to use for this bidding process. So with that, that takes us to Canada having 3 venues, Mexico having 3 venues, and the United States having all the rest. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and look at the schedule that's being proposed from the bid book to FIFA, and if we look at it a little closely, you'll see that there are 3 areas for Mexico, 3 areas for Canada, and then 10 areas for the United States. And I believe those are the venue numbers for each country respectively, 3 in Canada, 3 in Mexico, and 10 in the United States. So in my opinion, I think that FIFA may go with what the bid book suggests to FIFA and have 16 venues with 3 in Canada, 3 in Mexico, and 10 in the United States. That's stuff that I took into consideration whenever I was selecting my cities, but we should also look a little bit deeply as to why certain cities would or wouldn't by looking at the criteria. There should be a minimum of 3 days rest for teams between matches, the same amount of rest days for teams playing each other. The United Bid suggests that there should be 7 group games, 2 round of 32 games, and 1 round of 16 games for Canada and Mexico, so that means they all have 10 games each, and the United States will have 60. The United Bid proposes a united group start, which means all 3 host nations, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, will host an opening game, with the main opening being in Mexico City or in Los Angeles. There will be a minimum of 2 days between matches to allow time for the grass to recover. The United Bid proposes that New York, New Jersey, or Metlife Stadium in this case, host the final, with Atlanta and Dallas hosting semifinal matches. No stadium should host more than 7 matches. And it is assumed from the bid book that there will be base camp areas and pods, which will shorten the travel for teams and fans. With that, these are the cities and stadiums being proposed to FIFA to host the 2026 World Cup. We have Atlanta with Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Baltimore and Washington, D.C.'s joint bid with Nrg Stadium, Boston with Gillette Stadium, Cincinnati with Paul Brown Stadium, Dallas with AT&T Stadium, Denver's Mile High Stadium, Edmonton Commonwealth Stadium, Guadalajara Estadio Akron, Houston with Nrg Stadium, Kansas City with Arrowhead Stadium, Los Angeles' Rose Bowl, and this is actually not officially mentioned in the bid book, but it is understood that SoFi is also a venue being up for consideration in Los Angeles. Mexico City's Estadio Azteca, Miami's Hard Rock Stadium, Monterrey's Estadio BBVA, Nashville's Nissan Stadium, New York, New Jersey's Metlife Stadium, Orlando Camping World Stadium, Philadelphia's Lincoln Financial Field, San Francisco Bay Area's Levi Stadium, Seattle's Lumen Field, and Toronto's Bmo Field, Vancouver's BC Place. Okay, and before I go on and make my predictions of which cities will be used, there are rumors suggested from Stephen Goff of the Washington Post that says that maybe 2 to 3 Canada cities might be selected instead of just 3, and that maybe 10 to 12 US cities will be used. And the stuff that I've researched behind that is that apparently FIFA doesn't really enjoy the city of Edmonton, and yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know what it is for sure, but I just know that FIFA officials apparently do not like Edmonton for some reason. But however, I don't think that they would want to take Edmonton out of the consideration of running because that would piss people off in Canada. So I think Edmonton will be safe, and I think Canada will get 3 venues. As far as 10 to 12 venues in the United States, the bid booklet clearly shows that it's not necessary for the United States to have 12 venues, so I still think it would be 10 in my opinion. And then Mexico is scot-free. They are gonna have 3 venues used. Okay, now going back down the list again, I will go ahead and mention if the city and venue will be a stadium used for the 2026 World Cup. Atlanta and Mercedes-Benz Stadium will definitely be used for the 2026 World Cup. It is a possible host site for a semifinal. It is being suggested to be used as a FIFA headquarters of some sort during the World Cup. It has the ability to, retract its roof in or out to have that controlled environment in such a hot time of the year. It's got the 360 video board. In my mind, Atlanta is an easy pick and instant lock for this World Cup. I think Baltimore and Nrg Stadium will definitely not be getting a host city bid from FIFA. I just think that, Baltimore is a historic city, but Washington DC dropping out and then trying to tag it onto Baltimore to piggyback it up a little bit just isn't enough. I know that there's renovations being done at Nrg Stadium, but I don't think those renovations are enough to woo people in FIFA to say that they want Baltimore to be a host city. Okay, Boston with Gillette Stadium, in my opinion, is definitely going to be a host for the 2026 World Cup. In my opinion, this is a very close vote between Boston and Kansas City. I just think Boston, with having Robert Kraft, who was very important in the bidding process to get the World Cup to the United States, Canada, and Mexico, I think that influence is just too big to ignore. And the fact that they are going to be renovating the stadium leading up to 2026, it's just going to be a great venue. It's going to be in an area where there's great weather, and you just can't ignore Boston and Gillette Stadium with everything that's going on. Cincinnati and Paul Brown Stadium, I'm going to be frankly honest, I don't understand how y'all made it this far. There's no way that Cincinnati is going to be a host of a World Cup game. I know they have lots of passionate soccer fans, especially with FC Cincinnati and all that, but I've never seen a soccer game being played in Paul Brown Stadium ever, and I don't think there's just enough in Cincinnati to woo FIFA or woo international travelers to want to go there anyways. Dallas and AT&T Stadium, much like Atlanta, it's an instant lock to host games during the 2026 World Cup. Again, controlled environment, you got the retractable roof, you have the big video board, it's in the heart of the country, and again, it's going to possibly be the host to FIFA headquarters, or it's possibly going to be the headquarters for the referees. So in my eyes, I see Dallas as an instant lock for the 2026 World Cup. I'm looking at Denver with Mile High Stadium with a lot of interest because I think Denver personally would be a venue for the World Cup, but according to articles that I've read from Grant Wall, it suggests otherwise, that Denver has put up a very terrible bidding process to host the World Cup games. I know that the environment and the weather would be really nice to host these games, and that they've hosted international soccer matches like the CONCACAF Nations League final. They did that in 2021. But apparently the bid has just been that bad that Denver possibly might not host games for the World Cup. So I don't know what to say. I like Denver personally, but according to things that I've read, Denver, you're probably not going to host games for this World Cup. Edmonton and Commonwealth Stadium. Again, rumors are that FIFA just doesn't like Edmonton because FIFA executives do have to travel all the way to Edmonton for these games as well and stay in hotels around that area. It suggests to me that they're not all that interested in Edmonton. However, Edmonton, I think you're pretty cool. But Edmonton is going to be an automatic lock because I think they will be giving 3 spots to Canada. So Edmonton, you're in. Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to provide an update on some of the World Cup venues that I've been seeing on news pieces across Twitter. This one's from Grant Wall's Substack. Again, this is going to be about Edmonton, and I've already mentioned how Edmonton is not looked at very favorably by FIFA, and this just confirms it from Grant Wall's Substack. Let's take a listen. It says, I'm hearing that Edmonton may not get games at all, leaving Canada with just Toronto and Vancouver, which might lead to an 11th US city being chosen instead. And if that was the case, I would definitely think that Kansas City would be an obvious place for me, because the Hunt family is so big on US soccer are in Kansas City, so I think Kansas City would possibly get the spot. Guadalajara with Estadio Akron. Guadalajara is probably one of the prettiest places I've ever been to. I went there this past summer and it is just packed with things to do. It is such a short trip to the beaches in Puerto Vallarta. You can go travel up north to Tequila, where they obviously make tequila. It's got, you know, great weather. It's just got so much to do. It's pretty much the epitome of what Mexico is, and yeah, Guadalajara, such a great city. Easy pick for the World Cup. Okay, Los Angeles, I think they're gonna have SoFi Stadium and the Rose Bowl available to be used, and this is also an instant lock. I know there's issues with SoFi Stadium, specifically with how narrow the field is. Grant Wall did mention in a question to a tweet that he had about if Kroenke and the engineers are going to be able to fix SoFi Stadium to make it wider for the World Cup, and he just answered with a simple yes, period. And yeah, so I think they will be able to get that done. They have 4 years to be able to push the suites and seats back during NFL offseason, and I think there'll be ample amount of time for them to do that. So I think SoFi Stadium, you will definitely be hosting a lot of games during this World Cup, and might even be hoping the main grand opening. So let's keep an eye out for that. Okay, Houston and Nrg Stadium. There's one thing I really like about Houston possibly hosting the World Cup, and it's something that a lot of stadiums don't have in the United States, and it's that retractable roof. I think that, you know, whenever people think of Houston, they think of all the hot and muggy humidity that comes with living, you know, so close to the Gulf. But having that roof over your head to have that controlled environment for the players, for the fans, I think makes a really big difference that you don't see in places like maybe Denver, Kansas City, Nashville, Cincinnati, or Orlando. So in my eyes, that and being the 4th largest city in the United States, I think Houston will host games for the 2026 World Cup. All right, Miami and Hard Rock Stadium. I think Miami and Hard Rock Stadium will host games for the 2026 World Cup. One of the benefits that it has is that it's the host to CONCACAF, and they have, you know, a lot of soccer culture and, you know, a little, I don't know what it is about Miami. Maybe it's the party vibes, the fiesta feel of it all, but Miami is just superior to Orlando, and that's all I want to say about it. It's just superior. Monterrey's Estadio BBVA. You know, Monterrey is a really cool and modernized city. It does get extremely hot there during the summer though. It will be interesting though to see what could possibly happen, because I know Rayados, whose stadium is being mentioned here, their rival Tigres is also building a new stadium that could possibly be completed before 2026. So there's a little drama to think about right there, but you know, Monterrey, BBVA, they have that iconic picture of the stadium around the mountains. It's really beautiful and very modern, so great place again for Mexico to have games. Nashville's Nissan Stadium. I think there's a lot of confusion in my mind as to what is going to be done with Nissan Stadium. Mexico City's Estadio Azteca. I don't think there's too much to say about this. It's already an automatic lock, as it's been mentioned in the bid book, to possibly host a grand opening for the World Cup in 2026. It's a historic stadium. It's hosted 2 World Cups, and it might even get renovated for the World Cup in 2026, though I think some of that still has to be worked out. But other than that, Estadio Azteca, instant lock for this World Cup. I've done like the very bare minimum of research on what's going on in Nashville and Nissan Stadium, and I've seen that they probably might have to be buying a new stadium or renovating the current stadium. And the magic number I see floating around a lot is $1.4 billion. I think that's a lot of money. And you know, I'm not an architect or engineer, and I don't know how long it takes to, you know, plan, build, and approve a new stadium. But technically it's gonna be in about 4 years' time. So they really have to have the stadium done in less time than that. That just seems really iffy in my mind, and I don't know if FIFA is going to be okay with having games in a venue that's, you know, not even been planned out yet. So I think that Nashville will not be getting a game. New York, New Jersey's Metlife Stadium. This is essentially the stadium proposed to be a final location. It shouldn't be that difficult to say that it's going to be a stadium for the World Cup. I mean, New York City is the most Americana city of all time. It is the epitome of what the United States is. So New York, automatic bid. Orlando's Camping World Stadium. I have nothing against Orlando. I enjoy Orlando a lot. I was there for the World Cup qualifier against Panama a couple of months ago. And you know, I just gotta say that Camping World is gonna be hot. There is no roof. It's gonna be in the middle of the summer. And Miami is just superior with the party vibes that it has and CONCACAF being there. Sorry, Orlando, you don't get a bid for 2026. Philadelphia's Lincoln Financial Field. Now, from what I've heard in articles, especially from Grant Wall's pieces, is that Philadelphia has been putting one hell of a bid to host World Cup games. And apparently it's impressed FIFA so much that they might actually pluck a semifinal game from Atlanta or Dallas. But if they don't, they'll probably still host a third place match. And then I don't think it's hard for us to kind of imagine Philadelphia on 4th of July for the United States' 250th birthday with the United States playing there. It just seems so magical, and it just seems so right that Philadelphia has games during the 2026 World Cup. Levi Stadium and the San Francisco Bay Area hosting a World Cup game is very interesting to me, and I think it will host games. It's just that San Francisco, whenever people think of the United States, I feel like they think of Los Angeles, you know, San Francisco and New York City, or maybe even Miami. It's just the Golden Gate Bridge, the hills with the homes, you know, you think of like that old 90s Americana, like Full House vibes. And of course you have the great weather that comes with everything, and then all the businesses and tech that are stationed there right now. I think San Francisco and the Bay Area will be hosting World Cup games in 2026. Seattle's Lumen Field. So very recently, Seattle hosted the CONCACAF Champions League final, and the FIFA president was there. They had a sold out crowd, and the Sounders constantly have sold out crowds there. So I think the fan base, the weather, just the proximity that it has to Vancouver to keep those close travel costs low, I think Seattle is an obvious place to host games for the 2026 World Cup. It'll be a great venue. Toronto's BMO Field. So Toronto is actually going to have to expand this stadium a little bit more because the minimum capacity to host games is 40,000, and the rumored amount that they're going to want to increase it to is 45,000 to 48,000, somewhere around that number. However, it's Toronto. It's not the capital of Canada, ladies and gentlemen, but it is essentially the biggest hub of, you know, foreign people in all of Canada. And I think Toronto in general is just a really great city to host World Cup matches in 2026. Vancouver's BC Place. BC Place is the host of the Vancouver Whitecaps. You know, I thought it was really interesting that they came in super late, but if you think of what Vancouver has to offer, I think it's going to be a super place to host World Cup games. They also have a retractable roof, so in case if it gets too hot, they can kind of close that up and shade things up a little bit. It was the host of the 2015 Women's World Cup final, for Christ's sakes. Like, it's going to be a great venue for this World Cup, and I'm glad they've decided to rejoin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I just want to say really quick, no hard or ill will feelings to the cities that I think aren't going to be hosting World Cup. I just try to use my best judgment as to what FIFA might want to do or see in some cities and then go with those. But with that being said, thank you again for watching this video. If you like the soccer content that I have offered you, again, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, as it would help me so much. And again, push my video to people much like you who enjoy soccer content. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.